Hi, boys and girls. This is Ms. Kathy. I'm so happy you've joined me today for another story just for you. The Rockslide Rescue. Wouldn't you like to know a secret code? Then you could send messages that only your friends would understand. That's exactly what Willie, Chris, and Sammy do. They learn Morse code. But while you read about Willie and the danger he is in, you can learn some important lessons about trusting God. Reading about Willie and the other shoebox kids is more than just fun. It's about learning what the Bible really means, at home, at school, or on the playground. Chapter 1. Buttertub Transmitters. I bought the stuff, Willie Taylor announced, happily waving a small plastic bag from Radio Shack as he entered Chris Vargas's home. Now I can make a sender, too. A transmitter, Chris corrected, smiling. You call it a transmitter. Sending a message is the same as transmitting a message. He led the way to the kitchen table where his electronic parts were waiting. Dad wrote down the directions for us, and Sammy will be here soon. This is going to be great. Just a few weeks before, Chris and Sammy had to write a report for social studies class. When Sammy and I first read about Samuel Morse, Chris explained while they waited, we thought he was boring. Then we found out about his secret code. Willie didn't know the whole story. Why did Samuel Morse need a secret code, he asked. Chris shrugged. He wasn't really trying to keep a secret, but this was when there was no telephones. Morse invented the telegraph. What's a telegraph? Willie asked. It's a way to send messages to someone a long way away by using a wire and a transmitter. The transmitter sends buzzes of sound. Samuel Morse created a special code using short buzzes and long buzzes so people could send messages to each other. Willie pulled out a sheet of paper covered with dots and dashes. So when you write Morse code on paper, the short buzzes must be the dots and the long buzzes must be the dashes. Right, Chris agreed, and when you say them out loud, you say dit for a dot and da for a dash. Finally, Sammy arrived, proudly holding up his plastic bag. Hi, guys, he called. I hope I got everything. That electronics store is a neat place. Did you see that computer program that helps you learn Morse code? He dumped his stuff on the table by Willie's and Chris's. I saw that, Willie said. That would be a great way to really get good at sending and understanding code messages. I wish I could buy it, but it costs more money than I've got. Oh well, maybe I can drop hints about getting it for my birthday or Christmas. Chris grabbed a small package and began to open it. Okay, let's get started. So this is a momentary push-button soft-feel switch. Wow, the name is bigger than the switch. Before long, each of them had a switch, a battery holder, and a little thing called a buzzer on the table in front of them. Chris stared at his stuff. My dad says this is easy. First, we connect the black wire from the buzzer and the black wire from the battery holder. He looked at his wires and frowned. How can you do that? Here, I got it, Willie said. He showed his wire connection to Chris. Just bend the little wire ends into hooks and hook them together. See? I got it, Sammy said, holding up the connected wires. I don't, Chris said, bending over his. These wires are so tiny they keep slipping away. Willie reached over and helped him. Thanks, Chris said. Okay, next we hook both the red wires to the little loops on the bottom of the buzzer. Everyone did that. Then all we do is push the switch. Ready? Everyone pushed. Bzzz, bzzz, bzzz. It works! All three boys yelled at the same time. Chris bounced out of his chair, stomped his feet, and jumped around the room while Willie howled like a wild animal. Sammy kept his buzzer buzzing. Chris's little sister Yo-Yo came running into the kitchen, followed closely by Mrs. Vargas. She looked worried. What's happened? What's wrong? Is everything all right? Everything's fine, Chris said, gasping for breath. Listen to this, Mrs. Vargas, Willie said when he could stop laughing. He touched the button on his buzzer several times. Bzz, 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 bzz. There, he said with a grin. I just said hi. Isn't this neat? Mrs. Vargas touched Chris's buzzer. It worked for her, too. Bzzz. Well, she said, it may not be the most pleasant sound, but it sounds better than all that racket I just heard coming from in here. Will you help us a minute, Mom? Chris asked. Do you save little plastic tubs, like the kind margarine or butter comes in? Sure, she answered. I have too many of them. They're on the bottom shelf in the pantry. Help yourself. Sammy frowned. What do we need Buttertubs for? Chris was already digging in the pantry. You'll see, he said as he backed out. May I please use a knife to cut holes in the lids, Mom? Mrs. Vargas handed him a short, stubby knife and a small breadboard. She watched silently along with Sammy and Willie as Chris cut a rough hole in the top of all 3 lids. He brought the containers over to the table and worked as he talked. Dad said that to make a Buttertub transmitter, you put the switch through the lid and put the other things inside the box. Oops! I guess I have to take off the switch wires first. Now I'll push it through the lid and hook up the red wires again. There, that was simple. He held up his finished project for the others to see. That's a good idea, Sammy said as he picked up one of the empty Buttertubs and began to do the same thing. Willie grabbed his. This makes the whole thing easier to carry, too. Mrs. Vargas smiled as she put the knife away and went back to her sewing machine. Can I watch? Yo-Yo said hopefully. Chris moved his Buttertub transmitter out of her reach. Well, okay, but don't touch anything. For a while the boys played with their buzzers, getting the feel of their switches. Yo-Yo finally put her hands over her ears and went back to her dolls in the living room. Chris smiled and said, Now, let's get down to business. He got pencils and paper for each of them. Let's take turns sending messages, okay? Okay, Willie said, you go first. Go slow so we can write down the letters we hear. Don't forget what we read about shortcuts. Willie and Sammy picked up their pencils. Dit, 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 dit. Dit, dit. Dit, 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 dit. Da. Dit, da. Dit, da, dit. Dit, dit, da. Chris sent. Okay, Sammy said with a puzzled look. Here's what I got. H-I-H-O-W-R-U. Huh? Oh, I get it, Willie exclaimed. It says, Hi, how are you, right? This is cool. Now it's my turn. They soon lost track of time as they sent messages and figured them out. Finally, Willie stretched his arms up in the air and wiggled his fingers. That's enough for now, he said, looking at his watch. It's almost time for Mom to come get me. Say thanks to your dad for me. This will really help us practice the code. And thanks for the Buttertub. I'm glad you guys came. Let's do it again tomorrow, Chris said. I can't, Willie said. Grandpa's taking me to the county fair over in the city. We're leaving real early and staying all day, just Grandpa and me. Well, how about next Monday after school, Chris asked. I'll ask, Willie said, but I'm pretty sure I can. They both looked at Sammy. He stood still, staring into space. Wouldn't it be great, he said thoughtfully, if we could send this code for real sometime and really talk to someone? On the way home, Willie thought about what Sammy had said. He's right, Willie decided. It would be fun to use the Morse code for real someday. It would be fun to use it and really help someone.
The story you have heard today is a chapter of The Shoebox Kids, Book 8, The Rockslide Rescue, written by Sandy Zaug, edited and created by Jerry D. Thomas, and used with permission from the Pacific Press Publishing Association. If you're interested in any other books published by the Seventh-day Adventist Church, please visit AdventistBookCenter.com or call 1-800-765-6955.
This podcast is a production of the Carolina Conference of the Seventh-day Adventist Church.